In fact, I'm not even sure I can keep studying at the seminary after this internship year. I'm really worried about being enslaved to my own debt until I'm 103. But I shouldn't be so self-centered. I'm so sorry for you and to the congregation for losing Pastor Liebenauer.
Oh, Ida, it's not your fault. And I'm not even sorry that I forgot to call the seminary, because, intern Ida, had I called, then you wouldn't have come, and we would have been stuck with these frogs without a clue to their meaning.
These frogs have meaning?
It's just like intern Ida said, Henry. God uses frogs to get our attention when there's some serious liberating to be done.
I said that?
You did. That and more. That non-anxious presence really works. Your prayerful calm helped me let go of my fear and open this envelope. And now I have. And now it all makes sense. You being here, and you, especially you.
The frogs? They make sense.
Henry, these frogs are a gift from God. And if I'm not mistaken, these frogs may even be a little parting gift from Pastor Liebenauer. Look here, Henry, at this anthem our dear departed Pastor Liebenauer left us to sing. And by us, I mean you and me, Henry. It's a duet.
I'll be.
Well, is there anything I can do?
Absolutely. You can take the offering during the funeral with that bushel basket.
Okay, but isn't an offering during a funeral a little bit unusual?
Can you think of a better way to celebrate the gift of a life of service given to God than by making it possible for the next generations to enjoy the same? This offering is going to go to the seminary to help bright, gifted future servants of the good news like you, Ida, be freed to answer God's call.
Well, that really would be wonderful. But what about these frogs?
If the Bible gives any clue here, then the frogs have done their job when we've learned to leap. Leap to free seminarians from their bondage to financial obstacles. And one offering every 75 years can't accomplish that.
Hey, Eliza, you almost sound like a preacher yourself. Have you ever thought about seminary?
Yeah.
Well, for now, let's just concentrate on the matters at hand. Henry, you and I have Pastor Liebenauer's funeral anthem to practice.
Okay.
There's a hole in our pulpit, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in our pulpit, dear Liza, a hole.
Then fill it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then fill it, dear Henry, dear Henry, fill it.
With whom shall I fill it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With whom shall I fill it? Dear Liza, with whom?
With a pastor, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With a pastor, dear Henry, a pastor.
You'd be a good pastor, dear Liza, dear Liza. You'd be a good pastor, dear Liza. You called.
With learning, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With learning, dear Henry, post-college 4 years.
Where shall you learn, dear Liza, dear Liza? Where shall you learn, dear Liza? Where?
At Gettysburg Seminary, dear Henry, dear Henry. At Gettysburg Seminary, dear Henry, the seminary.
Seminary costs money, dear Liza, dear Liza. Seminary costs money, dear Liza, not cheap.
Then fund it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then fund it, dear Henry, fund it.
With what shall I fund it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I fund it, dear Liza? With what?
Not manna, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Not manna, dear Henry, from heaven.
Has manna stopped falling, dear Liza, dear Liza? Has manna stopped falling, dear Liza? When?
Open your Bible, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Open your Bible, dear Henry. Read Joshua 5:12.
Oh, this is bad news, dear Liza, dear Liza. Bad news, dear Liza, dear Liza. Bad news.
But we need good news, dear Henry, dear Henry. We need good news, dear Henry, good news.
Who preaches good news, dear Liza, dear Liza? Who preaches good news, dear Liza? Who?
A pastor, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. A pastor, dear Henry, dear Henry. A pastor.
From where, dear Liza, dear Liza, dear Liza? From where, dear Liza, dear Liza? From where?
From the pulpit, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. The pulpit, dear Henry, dear Henry. The pulpit.
There's a hole in our pulpit, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in our pulpit, dear Liza, a hole. Well, that's the way the day began, that great and awesome day, that day of the plague of biblical proportions. The real miracle, what squelchers now call the plague to plenty transformation, happened during the service, right after the prayers of the people, when Eliza asked God to help keep us mindful of the blessings of ministry and the importance of supporting future church leaders on a regular basis, early and often. While Eliza and intern Ida passed bushel baskets through the congregation, the frogs on the altar and on the pulpit and on the baptismal font just hopped up and down and out of the chancel and quietly arranged themselves among members of the congregation, some in the pews, some in the choir loft, and others in the nursery care room. Ever since then, now so many years later, those frogs are still here. And if you listen, you can still hear them. And the transformations keep coming too. Starting with a first offering, we send gifts to the seminary to support student scholarships every year as part of our God-given vision to squelch seminarian debt. The first captive we've freed from poverty was intern Ida, who today, as Pastor Hopewell, serves Plentiful Harvest Lutheran Church, a mission congregation she started from seed. And Eliza, she went off to seminary, and you bet we helped her get through. You've probably heard of her. She's a bishop now. And besides encouraging every congregation to make regular leaps of faith, in support of the seminary, she makes sure every pastor in her synod has solid retirement plan and takes sabbaticals. So you may wonder, will South Quirksville United Evangelical Lutheran Church always have these frogs with us? We can only hope to be so blessed. At least that's what our new minister, Pastor Lee Leapready, likes to say. We can only hope, and so can you. Why, in your own churches, I bet you have more frogs than you realize.